Thank you, Max, for the introduction. It's great to be here at the LogTech Asia Virtual Summit to talk about the role of artificial intelligence in warehouse operations. During this talk, if any of you have any questions, do post them in the comments section below on the same page, and I'll be happy to answer those questions as we go along. So, my name is Aditya, and I am the co-founder of Xaltius, a company in Singapore, and I've been in the field of consulting for more than 7 years. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the role of AI in warehouse operations and where it was and where it's headed to today. So let's start off by typically understanding what a day in data looks like. We have social media, connected devices, be it in the warehouse or outside. Data is coming in from a lot of these different sources, and if you look at the slide on the screen, then it'll give you an idea about the scale and the vastness of the data we have today. We have structured data, we have unstructured data, we have real-time data coming in, and we need to have systems in place to be able to process all of this data and give us useful business insights at the end of the day. So all this explosion kind of started about 5 to 6 years back, when we had the 4G coming in and taking over all of us. We had broadband becoming more pervasive. Uh, and as of today, in 2020, we're going to have about 40 zettabytes or more of data being produced on the whole, which is a lot of data. And you must have heard a lot of people and presenters say this, that data is the new commodity, it's the new oil. And it's true, because businesses are now being able to use data which is coming in to drive business value, and at the same time create new business opportunities for them or their customers. Now, we said we're going to talk about artificial intelligence. So let me give you a brief idea about what that is. Uh, Artificial intelligence is basically a tool or a technique which enables machines to behave like humans or mimic some human behavior. And in the artificial intelligence suite, we have a number of different tools and techniques, such as machine learning and deep learning, which uh, basically are algorithms to help you perform these different tasks. And we'll touch base a little bit upon their use in warehouses as well. And one of the biggest questions, which I guess get asked all the time, is AI a boon or a bane? Now, some people do criticize AI for a lot of things, but personally for me, I think AI is just a means to an end. It always complements different operations and helps humans to make things a lot easier and flexible. And that's where we should see AI as. We shouldn't specifically see AI as something which is outrageously just going to replace all the humans on the planet. That's not something which is going to happen. Now, getting to a broader field first, let's talk a little bit about artificial intelligence in the supply chain and logistics space, and what it entails, what it has, and specifically, why it is important in this particular industry. We're going to talk about three things here. Firstly, AI has the capability to unlock a lot of value in the data. And when I talk about a lot of value, it can be for business productivity, it could be to help customers, or it could be to just help enhancing various processes. The second thing is that it helps transform human-machine interaction relationships, which is where AI is vastly important, because we want AI to take over some of the activities which can make jobs for the humans easier. And lastly, we want to reimagine and reinvent some of those business processes and models out there which drive the operations in supply chain and logistics. And when we talk about the future of supply chain, I'm just laying the ground here. Uh, it's basically a three-step process which involves first getting in your data from all these different sources. Secondly, coming up with machine learning models and integrating AI to make the processes more efficient. When I'm talking about processes, I am basically referring to operations in the supply chain and logistics industry. It could be the production line, it could be the inventory management side, it could be even staffing in warehouses. So it it's a vast array of different operations which could be handled. And lastly, optimizing these processes targeted towards different operations which happen in the supply chain and logistics. Things like location-based routing, things like allocating trucks, things like how do you place shelves within warehouses, how do you manage inventory within warehouses, and also simple cost predictions in your supply chain and logistics operations. And the reason, because of which AI is becoming pervasive in this industry is because the inclusion has become easier. It has become easier, and we're now able to get a new level of information on top of the classical methods which we have been using since time immemorial. And this can help us significantly improve the predictions, the forecast capability, and a lot of other things. Secondly, you have access to a lot of data, so you have the ability to do data collection more efficiently, to tap into different data sources more efficiently, especially external data, things like weather, price, and so on. And thirdly, today you don't need to have a very big, vast array of rigid programming teams. You can focus your attention more on linking existing systems with the capabilities of today in terms of AI and machine learning. And these are some of the reasons why this inclusion has now become so much so easier. Let's dive a little bit into the strategy for warehousing, the AI strategy for warehousing, and why artificial intelligence is becoming so pervasive. And at this point you may be wondering, uh, warehouses are mainly governed by humans and a lot of production lines, automated equipment. So how does artificial intelligence essentially fit into this chain? So let's talk a little bit about that at this point. We start off with what the necessities of the warehouse are. So we're talking about whether things need to be more agile, uh, because things in the warehouses are rapidly changing. Things from scale of the warehouse to size of the inventory and many other factors. Secondly, is it scalability we're talking about? Because warehouses at any point in time probably would need to be equipped with uh, bigger sizes, more inventory, and would need to probably scale from a smaller to a bigger size more and more quickly. And number three is we're talking about data visibility, and this is one of the key things in the warehouse because we can apply artificial intelligence and machine learning, only to those areas where we have a lot of visible data and we have data coming in from different sources inside the warehouse, especially the operational side. Now, why do you think AI in logistics and warehousing in particular is becoming so prevalent and increasing? There are certain trends which have been ongoing for the past few years, and I've personally been seeing some of this myself. Um, so what are these things? Number one is that there's a huge amount of available data, and today you see a lot of the organizations, especially in this area of warehousing, are collecting data for future use. Secondly, we have the infrastructure and the computing power, things like the cloud, things like GPUs to help us with processing what we today call big data because of the large volume of information. And lastly, we have the algorithmic capability to be able to add value to all these previous steps. If we did not have the capability, then collecting data on such a large scale would not make any sense. And AI can simply revolutionize the supply chain industry and the logistics side. Um, and there are some ways in which AI can do this. Firstly, AI has the capability to contextualize intelligence to the needs. And what are the different needs in supply chain? The needs in supply chain are mainly operations. Things like management, things like productivity, And AI has the capability to analyze a large volume of this information in a small volume of time to give the business various insights and the actions it could take up in relation to all these different aspects. Uh, and lastly, the main point of using AI is to manage and enhance the customer experience. Why today, if we shop from a place like Amazon or Lazada or any of the e-commerce places, uh, what do we expect? We generally expect that we have faster deliveries, we have faster stocking, and based on this, the customer experience is going to be impacted. So we specifically want to use AI to make sure our customer stays happy, and that's where the main focus of many of these industries are at today. And if we talk specifically about the use of AI in warehouses, then there are a lot of different ways AI can be incorporated into the operations. And I'm going to talk about a few here, on this slide. Let's talk about visual perceptions. Now, one of the key things about the warehouse is the people working in the warehouse. We need to monitor them. We need to make sure they are being efficiently utilized. So camera feeds can give us the information about what people are doing at any point in time, whether they are being optimally used, whether they need more breaks, whether they are being overused, and so on. And that's one source of very valuable information for us. Uh, Secondly, we could have some aspect of robotics with machine learning and AI in our warehouses to help us with things like pick and place, uh, you know, reaching areas which are very difficult for humans to reach, and optimizing certain decision making as well. And the aim of all this, at the end of the day, is to support humans. As I was saying earlier, we're not going to be replaced completely by AI, but it would basically help humans to take better decisions. It would give them suggestions, and also to do things like improving accuracy with respect to stocking inventory, shelving, um, taking the right items to the right truck. If you're talking about warehouses, how much time is optimally required to do that, how many people are required to do that, what are the equipment required, and so on. The list is endless. And when we put two and two together and when we combine all these elements, what are we looking at to primarily enhance and optimize our warehouse performance? We're looking at things like self-learning mechanisms. And when we talk about self-learning mechanisms, we're basically talking about simple decision-making systems improving over time by learning how things happen in the warehouse, on the floor, in various operations, and ultimately being able to take smarter and smarter decisions. Which is where we come to the second point, that these decisions would now be automated, and you would have some level of automated decision making. And secondly, we would also talk about things like predictions of cost, predictions of how much supply we need for some products. And all of these require you to have very good forecasting algorithms and forecasting methods to be incorporated. And this is where machine learning and AI can improve the productivity and use of the warehouse to a very high level. And thirdly, what we want systems to be able to do is to use the complexity it brings along, imbibe that in the operations, and learn patterns, regularities, irregularities, dependencies between different elements in the warehouse, and adapt ultimately to enhance the operations, which otherwise would be consuming a lot of time, would be taking up a lot of effort, or would ultimately not be very profitable for the company. So, if I give you a scenario, imagine you launching the picking process for a customer, even before the customer is checking out his order. Wouldn't that be, amazingly cool? And it's definitely possible to get to that level, provided we fulfill all these prerequisites, provided we, are able to incorporate AI and machine learning to, an extent which does not overkill the system, but at the same time enhances and maximizes utilization. If we take a case study, the first organization which comes to my mind is Amazon, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a timeline study of the transformation which happened in the Amazon warehouse. Right from 2000 and 2000, even before, Amazon got all its systems in place, it used to use a lot of manual methods, from the time it started in 97. Things like books, things like, pen and paper to take down orders and to fulfill those orders. But within a span of 15 years, AI and machine learning being incorporated, Amazon has scaled up and has, already used about 100,000 robots in their warehouses. And, over the next few years, probably in this decade, the use of all these advanced technologies is going to contribute to about $1 trillion of revenue for the organization. And even though the overhead in, getting all these into the warehouse or into the warehouse operations could be a little high initially, the the ultimate goal in the long run would be to make sure these systems are scalable. These systems increase productivity and help humans, and other operations out there to be more and more efficient. And this is a small image comparison for you. So the one on your left is what was in the 90s and 1997, where they had manual systems and small rooms like this to fulfill orders. And the one on your right is 20 years later, where we're looking at completely automated systems in the warehouse, and on the production lines to kind of automate the entire process from picking, placing, packing, and just using humans in some part through the quality checks and stuff like that. So the warehouse of the future, just coming to the end of my talk, is going to consist or should consist of these elements, to make the business more productive, to make the system more efficient. Things like AI, which is what we were talking about the past few minutes, and other complementary items like IoT, which is another big thing, and complements AI because of all the data influx from sensors and the different areas of the warehouse it can bring. Things like drones, robotics, and augmented reality also contributing towards making systems and processes more efficient. So, as I mentioned earlier, I'm one of the co-founders of Xaltius, and what we basically do is we help organizations, like logistics, freight forwarding, supply chain, to embark on this digital transformation journey of utilizing AI, machine learning, data science, and big data, to be able to ultimately enhance their productivity, reduce operational costs, uh, bring that technology transformation because we already have the infrastructure, and it's better to utilize the infrastructure rather than let it sit dormant inside a warehouse. So that's it for my talk, and I would like to thank all of you for listening to me. And if you have any questions, do post them in the comment section, which is on the same page below, and I'll be happy to answer them and help you with any issues and questions you might have. So, thank you once again, and I hope you had some takeaway from this in terms of how AI and warehouses are complementary to each other, and in the long run is going to be the de facto for every organization there.